Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Van Beek and welcome to my channel and this nasty chest cold that is making my voice sound even worse than usual. Today we're going to be looking at the Laowa 65mm f2.8 2x Ultra Macro APO from Venus Optics, but we're going to be looking at it on a full frame camera. Stay tuned. As stated on the Venus Optics website, the Laowa 65mm f2.8 is the only macro lens on the market that is capable of producing 2x life-size images and designed specifically for mirrorless cameras. The new 65mm is remarkably light and compact and makes it ideal for macro photography, daily still photos, portraiture, and more. The lens features Fujifilm X, Sony E, and Canon M mounts. This is a lens designed for cameras with APS-C or cropped sensors. Despite that fact, I'm going to take a look at this lens as used on a full-frame Sony A7RIV. Why on earth would I do that, you ask? This is a great question and one that I thought about quite a lot. I use macro lenses rather sparingly in my commercial and wedding work, but I definitely need one on occasion. The problem with niche lenses for me is that I don't like carrying any more weight than I have to, which means that when I'm carrying a set of lenses for a wedding, I will leave out whatever I can to lighten my load. So let's have a look at this lens on the camera. The first thing that I should mention is that this lens, like all Laowa lenses, is manual focus. The lens itself is very well made with an all-metal body. There is nothing about it that feels cheap, including the smooth aperture and focus control. The most exciting part of this lens for me is that it's only 10 centimeters long and weighs 335 grams. For me, this means that I would never hesitate to bring it along. Compare this to the Laowa 100mm f2.8 macro for full frame cameras with 50% more length and double the weight. The cost of the 100mm is only $50 US more than the 65 macro, so the cost savings are minimal. The next thing that you notice after the small size of this lens is the full metal construction along with very clearly marked delineations for how much macro power you're using and the aperture. The filter size comes in at 52mm. To demonstrate the macro capabilities of this lens, I use this wedding ring as my sample. A typical macro photo in wedding photography includes most of the size of the actual ring and often other elements in the frame to make it look more interesting. A typical macro lens with a 1:1 magnification would be able to handle anything you would want to do for ring shots. Even some lenses with a 1:2 magnification ability would be able to handle photos where the ring is relatively small in the frame. This is an example of one of those shots where the ring is relatively small in the frame. But what about when you want to get a much closer view? With a 2:1 magnification, you can keep zooming in quite far. In the following images, I decided to see how much magnification 2:1 actually means. Add on top of that the 1.5 times crop factor of using a cropped lens on a full frame camera, and you're basically getting a 100mm lens. As you can see, you can get amazingly close to your subject. This particular photo shows the full 2:1 magnification ability at 26 megapixels cropped on a 61 megapixel Sony A7RIV. Zoomed in to 100%, this is what the image looks like at f8. This is a nice testament to the optical quality of this small lens. You are definitely not going to run out of magnification to get the small details that you are interested in. I would have loved to have shown you what I could do with insects, except that it is the middle of February here and I haven't seen an insect in months. Let's have a look at what all of these different magnification numbers mean in real life. Take a look at the Canadian nickel at the center of this image. Any lens could take a photo like this one. This is what a lens with a 1:2 or also known as 0.5:1 magnification can do. It's not amazing magnification, but it's enough for larger items like flowers and big items like that. When you move to 1:1 magnification, which is the standard magnification offered in the majority of actual macro lenses, you get a lot of detail and it's often more than enough for most macro work, depending of course on what macro work you're doing. 2:1 magnification gets you very close to the subject. Don't think for 1 second though that you will ever do this handheld or even with the slightest bit of wind outside. This is something that you can only do with a tripod in a stable environment. This particular photo was taken at f8, ISO 100, and with a 10-second exposure. Finally, this is a 100% zoomed in crop of the 2:1 magnification. It's still quite sharp and is fully usable for many applications. This is one more example of what a pile of snowflakes looks like at a 2:1 magnification and 100% zoom. So how do we go about using a lens that is made for an APS-C size sensor on a full frame? What I've done here is I've programmed a button so that I can switch to APS-C mode on my camera itself so that I'm not seeing the crop of the lens itself. Now, if you want to do this yourself, you go into the menu, go into the first tab, go to the first tab, first page, bottom of there, and you can see that you have the APS-C and super 35mm setting turned on. You put it in auto, it'll automatically switch when you put an APS-C size lens on, or you can just put it on, and then when you go here, you'll notice that there's no longer that circle. Now, if you want to program your own button, go into the second tab, page 9, to custom key, go to the fifth item, which is the trash button, the one that you use to delete images when you're in view mode, and you can go in there and select what you want. It's the first page of all of the options, and you can select APS-C S35 full frame select. That will give you the exact same ability that I have programmed in here. So finally, what are the pros and cons of using this lens compared to a full frame macro? In the pros column, we have the obvious. The lens is tiny and it's light, so that you're more likely to bring it with you wherever you go. The lens is inexpensive compared to most macro lenses, and the field of view with a 65mm in cropped mode is almost the same as 100mm on a full frame camera. Now the cons, on the other hand, are you're losing a lot of resolution. The images with the 65mm are 26 megapixels, while they would be 61 megapixels with the 100mm. When you crop in on the full resolution images from the 100mm, you can in effect get even closer than when using the 65mm. It's manual focus, which isn't a big deal for many macro users, but may affect your decision. It also doesn't have image stabilization. But based on what I've seen so far for my images and the cost and weight of this lens, the cons don't matter to me. The benefits far outweigh any of the negatives. Now, if you're interested in other points of view of this lens, take a look in the comments below for some other more technical reviews where they cover flare, barrel distortion, and those sorts of things. Also, if you found this review helpful in any way, please hit the like button below, and of course, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos about photography and videography. In the meantime, thanks very much. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next video.